Are you a tenant with problem neighbours and you want to know what your rights are? This episode is for you. Within this episode of Heal Your Home, we're going to be looking at how to optimise the relaxing space we all call our home. As well as that, we'll have a listener question to look at the pros and cons of solar panels, and also a tenant top tip to look at what rights tenants have, especially when it comes to problem neighbours.
Heal Your Home with Jason Ratcliffe, the home health expert.
All of us share a common factor in all of our lives, and that is we live somewhere, and that is what we call our home. And a home environment should be somewhere which is our sanctuary, is our place of rest, and we feel safe. But not everyone, one, is able to benefit from this, but also they don't understand the importance of how to achieve this, or the importance of actually having a stress-free environment to be able to come home after a busy day and be able to recharge and re-energize. So how can we do this? Well, without going into huge details on this episode, there are a few ways that we can consider to help reduce our stress levels and improve our well-being and ability to relax in a home environment. One very easy way is clutter and layout. So it's easy for things to build up or throw things on the stairs or not do the dishes, for example. But when you come in from a day, especially if you're out all day and you come in and you just want to easy prepare a meal, for example, and you've got a lot of dishes to do. Now this can then include, increase stress levels and frustrations and then anxieties because of your limited ability to relax in the evening. So these are things that are easier said than done. And I'm also at fault of it, and everybody around me that I know is not easy to do. But try and prepare so that when you come home, everything is done, prepared, and able to increase those times of relaxation. So being able to make sure the kitchen's tidy in the morning, make sure everything is put away, make sure there is no clutter on the stairs to be a trip hazard or a general anxiety-inducing environment where there's things that you kind of look around if you're sitting on your sofa, for example, or reading a book, and you think, I really should be doing that. I really should be doing that. So a clean, clutter-free environment is really important. And also the flow of your property, making sure that you have plenty of ability for fresh air ventilation to help really get rid of all the stuffy feeling or the unwanted odours that can build up in a home environment, and making sure that, again, you have things like dehumidifiers and humidifiers. Now, humidifiers are really important because then they can re-enter moisture within the air environment, which then helps improve the air quality as well. So the balance between the two, depending on where it is in your property, is really important. And obviously the type of property, you don't want to be putting more moisture into the air if you've got a damp cottage. That's really not going to help. But in most properties, a humidifier is really great because, one, it can help push flow through, so it can push airflow through the property so you don't have that stuffy feeling. But also, again, it can help with respiratory issues as well and just ease those symptoms a little bit, especially things that are put on the lungs or any difficult breathing. This is not by way any medical advice, but I have found this to be useful myself. But also setting the right vibes and energy within your home, making sure that the colour schemes within your home are going with the right energy you're looking for. Different colours associate with different things, and you can end up just having something that you don't even realise. You just think, oh, it looks great, but actually it can be quite aggressive or quite stressful, or the wrong type of emotion that can be triggered. So making sure the colour palettes are adequate, especially in bedroom environments and sitting room and areas where you're withdrawing to and resting as a family, and also making sure that those areas have comfortable and well postured seating areas that can really help. But as well as that, plants. Now, plants are I'm a big advocate of plants. Me and my family are a huge advocate of plants indoors. The right plants obviously are very important, making sure you get ones that are shaded or direct sunlight, etc., making sure that you water them correctly. But the right type of plants can really have an effect So if you have ferns, for example, you have dragon trees or rubber plants, bamboo plants, all different types of plants can have different varying degrees of air filtration and improving air quality. So if you have a lot of volatile organic compounds, formaldehyde, for example, or printers and fumes, or if you live near a main road, there can be a lot of issues depending on how you live, but also where you live, that can have a massive impact on the air quality in your home. So plants, getting the right plants and the right number of plants is a massive booster within a home environment. It can really change how you feel and you relax within your home, but also just from a physical health quality, it can really help reduce the issues that people can have with breathing, and even down to things like symptoms with allergies, for example. So these are some things that are really, really important to look at. I'm not a plant person in the way of expert in plants. By all means, I would never pretend to be, but it is definitely something worth looking at and researching. But also looking at going into aromas within a property, making sure you have essential oils or making sure you have odor natural remedies for odor cancellations and things like that, especially have pets. So all of these things, they may only seem small and micro issues or changes, but if you put them all together and making sure that your work environment is placed carefully in your home as well, it's not in a bedroom environment or a social area where you're always conscious of it and you need to relax. So just put those laptops and computers in a way, in an isolated area. We're all at fault of it, especially after COVID. So it's really important to make sure that you separate work from your overall life, and making sure you're actively keeping that work-life balance. So these are some top tips. These are not all of them. There's an awful lot more, and we will delve more deeply into these issues and remedies moving forward within this series of podcasts. But I hope these are some top tips that can help improve, even if it's a little bit, your home environment and your general wellness within your home.
Heal Your Home, the home health expert.
Within this week's episode of Heal Your Home, I've had the great privilege of interviewing Daniel Mayho. Daniel has been a letting agent within Cornwall for many years within the residential sector, and has seen a huge amount of property legislation change, issues with tenants, issues with landlords. So it's been a great pleasure to have his insight into this from a professional and on the coalface experience. Thank you for joining me today, Dan. It's all right. A pleasure for you to be here. And
it's good to be here.
Excellent. So, yeah, really, your background, for those who don't know, is in estate agency.
Yeah, so I started off in a estate agency over 10 years ago. Through that, I worked my way through the sales part of the industry, working in multiple locations through West Cornwall. I then, after that, decided to go on to the letting side of things. So I worked in a property management role, from where I managed a portfolio of hundreds of homes. And then from that, I worked my way through the ranks in lettings until I kind of got as far as I could. And then I decided to take on a new challenge and go into building surveying.
Fantastic.
And that's where I am today.
Excellent. So when you're kind of going into a tenant's shoes, because obviously you see it a lot from a landlord's perspective, I suppose, when somebody, especially say families or elderly people, if they have issues with the way their property is managed, maintained, if they've got heating bills that are skyrocketing and they feel a little helpless, what are the best ways that they can really approach that situation, do you think?
Well, from that perspective, a landlord actually has a legal obligation to a certain extent to make sure the house that they are renting out to somebody is energy efficient. For example, at the moment, the EPC ratings is the landlords for them to legally let their property, it has to be a rating of a E. Is it? Yeah, E. However, that is going to be changing in upcoming years to a D. I believe there was talks of it being a C, but I'm pretty sure a D is for definite at the moment. So from that perspective, that would include landlords making energy efficient improvements to their properties, which will make the running costs of the properties lower for the tenants. However, there are certain types of houses that won't be able to have certain upgrades. But when it comes to saving money and increasing the energy efficiency of a property, if you as a tenant has an idea and it might potentially work, that is always something you can present to a landlord to see if they would be willing to actually do it. Of course, if their property already meets with the minimum requirements, then legally they're not obliged to do anything, but ultimately who would pass by the opportunity to increase the running costs of a property, especially in today's times where energy costs are probably the highest they've ever been. I don't see why a landlord should instantly disregard any such request.
No, that's interesting. So if you were a tenant and hopefully you had the perfect landlord, or a landlord that would, I suppose there's no such thing as a perfect landlord, but that would be willing to do the investments or the improvements, if they weren't and it wasn't meeting those minimum energy efficiency standards, what would you think the tenant should do? Do you think they should go to the managing agent or seek advice somewhere else?
Well, with any request anyway, it would always be dealt with by the managing agent, because you as a tenant will very unlikely have direct contact with your landlord if there is an agent involved. So your first point of call will always be the agent. So any proposal or questions you have will go directly to them, who will then feed it back to the landlord. And by all means, the agent can then put you in contact with the landlord if it's something the landlord is interested to do. But if you feel like you're putting forward these options and they're valid options and cost-effective options, and you're not getting anywhere and just smashing your head against a brick wall, then yes, there are other ways of seeking advice on what you could do. You could talk to a Core Citizens Advice Bureau to see if they can advise you on anything on that matter. Ultimately, you could seek other advice from such as, like, before you even, if you've come up with an idea, to make sure that you've got all of the relevant information before presenting it to a landlord. You could engage with like a specialised energy company that deals with the particular improvement you're wanting to make, and get costings for the landlord straight away. It puts together a concrete case basically, so when you go to the landlord with it, you're not just saying, oh, can we, you know, we want to make the house more energy efficient.
You've just got a bit more evidence there to go back.
If you can build up a good case with the evidence there, saying, right, look, here's a company that can do it. They've already given me a quote of this much. It's going to increase the energy efficiency of our house by this much, and it's going to save us about this much on our energy bills each year.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. What do you think, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord? You know, you've got a better chance of success by being fully prepared and going to the landlord with that, rather than just saying, our energy costs are a bit high, we want you to make it better.
Yeah.
You know,
just take you more seriously.
Absolutely.
But with anything, whether you're a homeowner or tenant, obviously there's how your behaviour, you know, how we know this anyway, how, you know, we don't hang clothes to dry on radiators, things like that. But what are the key things that you kind of see within, well, when you were in that letting position, that tenants were doing that you really should be kind of avoiding?
So quite common, the most common thing that I always saw was people drying their clothes indoors. Now, of course, we live in a very, very wet part of the country, so I do understand when people sometimes do it. However, it's a case of, I've seen it time and time again, and too many times, people dry clothes indoors, but then they don't adequately heat or ventilate the property, because it's on that assumption of the heating costs too much to run, and opening the windows is going to make your house cold. which means you're going to have to put your heating on, which is going to put your bills up. And it's not quite the best approach to it. Even if it's just a case of, with windows, leaving them on a security lock. If they've got trickle vents built into them, leave those open so you're getting a constant stream of ventilation around the property to reduce the risk of all of the condensation build-up. Because at the end of the day, that moisture that's leaving your clothes, that's drying, it has to go somewhere, and it will hit the coldest surface in your property, which tends to normally be around windows, and then you end up with a lot of mold growth and condensation on your condensation build up on your glass. Sorry. And initially, what I have found from that is the first reaction from tenants has been, my house is damp.
Yeah.
Straight away they'll say to me, the house is damp, the landlord needs to fix it.
Yeah.
When actually it's not. It's down to poor ventilation, poor heating, and also, believe it or not, even us as humans, when we breathe, we produce quite a considerable amount of moisture when we're breathing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't stop. I'm not saying stop breathing. Yeah. But at the same time, bedrooms was one of those areas that always seemed to have been higher in condensation, and that's purely because when you're sleeping at night, you're still breathing out a lot of moisture. And you end up with black spot mold in the places where the warm moisture is hitting then the cold surface of your window, which is then you get the condensation, and then you end up with all the black spot mold. So really, the best advice always is to keep your home well heated, well ventilated. But that doesn't, as I said, that doesn't have to be, you have to have your heating on 24/7. It doesn't mean you have to have every single window in your home wide open all year round. It's simple things. Keep your trickle vents open. If your windows have got security locks on them, which allow for ventilation to still come in, but your windows are still securely shut, leave them on that. And then your heating wise, have it on a timer. Come on 20 minutes, half an hour during the day.
Yeah.
Not in the summer months, of course, you know. But
yeah. When it starts dropping in temperature.
Absolutely. Just keep your heating on a regular timer. So during the day, and also keeping your house, if you can, at a constant temperature. I think it's typically you want to keep it above 18 degrees. Yeah. Is it 17 degrees or 18 degrees? 18 degrees. Yeah. If you keep it above 18 degrees, it considerably reduces the amount of condensation or your risk of getting black spot mold.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a pretty simple but very, very effective tip, to be honest, so thank you. Yeah. And from obviously from the flip side with the landlord, these things are obviously going to increase appeal, increase demand for their property. They're an investment, obviously, whether it's in a portfolio or a single property. So I'm assuming you're seeing more appeal and more increased demand for energy efficiency and sort of home health for that side as well, because obviously then you're going to be getting better quality applicants, better tenant opportunities in there as well. Is that what you've seen or not?
Well, yes and no. So ultimately, yes, a landlord is always in favour of having a house that's cheap to run and cheap to maintain. Purely from that perspective, it increases their profit margins. At the end of the day, a landlord, it's a business. Yeah, so absolutely. It's not their home, it's a business, which we all have to understand. But it all depends on the demand on the market at the time as well. Like, for instance, here in Cornwall, we've got a housing shortage at the moment. We have done for the last sort of 18 months, where there are queues, there are lists as long as my arm of tenants that are waiting for properties. So, and it's in times like that, a lot of tenants don't mind what the property is, as long as it's got enough bedrooms to support them or their family, sure, whoever it is moving in there. They're not that fussed. And on that side of things as well, landlords, I guess, may have not been overly worried about the type of property that they're purchasing, as long as it meets the minimum requirements of like energy performance.
So much demand.
Yeah, it meets with their financing, and it's going to achieve a suitable rent to cover what they're putting into it. Landlords really aren't going to mind They will just buy it because as a business opportunity, it works in the market now.
Yeah.
So they'll buy it.
So
and
really,
then they'll rent it.
from a tenant's perspective, if you can, obviously it's not everybody's circumstance. Some people just kind of get what they can. But if you are in a position when you can hold off, what kind of things, if you were going into a new property and looking around for the first time, what are things that you would be looking for that are kind of good practice, I suppose, to give you an idea of how that property may be maintained?
What do you mean, sorry?
So if you go into a property and it's
New build,
well painted, new build, either, any kind of property, it's kind of the maintenance side of things, making sure it's well painted, that kind of stuff.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yes, so if you're a tenant searching for a property, whether the home is brand spanking new, 20 years old, 50 years old, 300 years old, when you go and look at the property, it is it is key to initially look at the condition of that property. And I don't mean that looking at it from a surveyor's perspective, is it falling down? But like, it's simple things, looking at the condition of the paintwork on the walls, looking at the condition of the carpets, the tiles in any bathrooms or on any floors, around the kitchen worktops. Because if those elements are pristine, that clearly shows that it's a landlord that cares about their property.
Yeah.
It's not just a money-making machine. They care about that property. So and it's recommended, like, landlords have their rental properties decorated once every 5 years, to keep on top, keep everything fresh. There's a limited lifespan to everything in a property. So like carpets, I think the recommended lifespan for them is sort of up to about 10 years. At that point, landlords should, if it gets to that 10-year mark, landlords may then need to consider their carpets need replacing in their rental properties. But by keeping on top of all of that, it shows, one, that they care, two, they are maintaining their properties, and three, it's their best way of getting one, they know a tenant that's going to look after the place, two, they're going to maximise their income from it as well. But if they've got a property where they haven't decorated it in 20 years, the kitchen is sort of 30 years old.
Things are hanging off the walls.
The bathroom is like a very, very old, like avocado suite from the like 60s or 70s. Then, it just shows that the landlord's purely bought it as a money-making machine. They don't really care, as long as you're paying your rent and the house doesn't fall down. They don't really care.
Yeah.
That's it really. But a house that's well looked after, and it is those little things. So paintwork, carpets, tiles, the quality of the finishings that they've put in there. I mean, I'm not saying they need to put in like a £20,000 kitchen.
No, practical, well-maintained,
modern. It just shows that they actually care about their property and the tenant that's going into there. Fantastic. They want them to have a good standard of living. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come here today.
It's all right.
Thank you.
No problem.
And now, a listener question for Heal Your Home.
The listener question come in from Facebook today was from Jeff in Exeter, I believe. Oh wow, okay, we're branching out. It's he's thinking of getting solar panels. Is it a good idea? Is it not a good idea? Yes, is the overall holistic answer, but it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. And also your budget. Now, there are various grants and things available for solar panels, but making sure the right ones are available as and when you're looking to apply is really important. But also, it really depends on what you're hoping to achieve, because there's two types of solar panels. So you have photovoltaic panels, which is the one we all know, which then converts sunlight directly into electricity. But then you also have thermal voltaic, which has what we call phase change material, so a liquid with a high thermal capacity and storage capacity. So it means it can store heat energy very effectively within tubes. And then that then can convert to things such as hot water cylinders and things like that, or heating systems. So there is a degree of using both, kind of a hybrid approach, which can then work very well as well. But also, it would be really beneficial to have a consultant come round who is a solar panel specialist to your home, because there is a huge amount of differential and effectiveness of solar panels based on your location, your orientation, because obviously if you have a roof space that has quite a lot of trees or shading, then it's probably not going to be as effective as somewhere that's going to be more exposed. But also you need to be looking at things which is more of a negative side, but is more of a kind of be careful of, is the construction itself of your roof. Is it strong enough to hold the additional weight or load of the solar panels? Because a lot of people go, yeah, that's absolutely fine. Well, if you don't have somebody who's qualified, such as a structural engineer, engaged for that, you don't know 100%. And unfortunately, there are some that do fall into this trap, and then it ends up having structural movement, undulation, roof spread, things like that, which then require more expensive remedial works than if you just got it inspected before any work started. So you can then put some remedies and some actions in place of re-strengthening the roof. So this is one, but also making sure that there's no restrictions on your home. If you've got a listed building, for example, then it's really important to make sure that you have listed building consent before going ahead with these improvements, because it's obviously a change to the character and the appearance of the building. So there are massive positives to solar panels. One, which is obvious, energy saving, especially if we're just going on the basis that the property is in a location that is optimal for solar panels. The location, energy efficiency and money saving is fantastic. You can then integrate that with smart meters, so therefore high energy intense things like washing machines, tumble dryers, heating systems, stuff like that can all be in operation, or car charging, things like that, when the sun is at its most optimal. So when you're normally at work or out and about, then at that point the house can then program and say, actually, we're getting a huge amount of energy being produced now. This is a great time to be off grid with all of these expensive high demand energy things, such as dishwashers and tumble dryers and things like that. So and also with a lot of the newer pressurized hot water cylinders as well, they have a health system or a cycle which then prevents things like Legionnaire's disease occurring. So that has a spike in energy usage. Those types of things can also then be programmed at optimal times. There is also energy storage, which or electricity batteries, for example, which are still quite expensive, but they are coming down in price. So just make sure that the improvements do definitely outweigh the cost, because if you're looking to move within the next 5 to 10 or even potentially 15 years, solar panels might not be the cheapest option, because they are definitely a long-term money-saving investment. Now, not to say that then doesn't increase the market value of the property, because depending on where you are and the certain types of property, there will be elements of increased I suppose profit margins or market value and demand if you've got solar panels. Not in every case, but in a lot of cases that's what we see. So, and also energy independence. A lot of people like being off the grid. This is a really good bonus. If things go down, you can't necessarily rely always, especially if you have power cuts and things like that. So having an off the grid independent energy source is a really great way to run a home, especially if you're in a rural or a semi-rural area. But also they can be very low maintenance if you get the right solar panels and the right calculations for the solar panels on your roof. They can be very low maintenance and also optimal efficiency. You can't necessarily just put one solar panel up and go, yep, fantastic, I have solar panels. You need somebody who knows how to calculate the roof space, the surface area and the orientation to be able to optimize the efficiency of the solar panels. That's really important. You can't just install solar panels and expect to get results. So I hope that helps. And if there's anything else that you'd like to cover or be covered within this series of podcasts, please let me know, and we can always revisit this in the future.
Jason's tenant top tip.
The tenant top tip for this episode of Heal Your Home is what happens if you're a tenant and you have a problem neighbour. This comes up quite often, and to be honest, a lot of these this advice and tips actually work regardless if you're a tenant or if you're a homeowner. We all have this occasionally in our lives where obviously neighbours might be playing loud music, or they might be being antisocial, especially in the 3-4 o'clock in the morning, or they might be more personally at sort of physically or verbally assaulting, or any issues that may arise. So if this is the case, what can we do about it? So there are various options. The main one, it may seem so simple, but try talking to your neighbour. General polite conversation. They may not even realise that they're doing it. It may be something that they may come in from work late at night, for example, and then maybe listen to the telly too loud. They may not realise that they're doing it, and therefore between you may well be able to work it out. But if that doesn't work, because the world is not perfect, contact your landlord. They have an obligation to ensure all their tenants have a right of quiet enjoyment to their property. Now, they can then take action themselves depending on if the neighbour is a tenant. Because again, if they are a tenant, their tenancy agreement may well say that they cannot be disturbing or causing a nuisance to their surrounding neighbours. So that may well be an action that your landlord can do and pursue to then basically go down a more of a contractual agreement, or kind of picking up on the fact that they may well be in breach of their tenancy agreement. If this is not the case and this doesn't get resolved, you can report antisocial behaviour to the council, depending on the type of antisocial behaviour or general behaviour. It can also be a criminal offence, so therefore harassment and anything such as assault. It doesn't have to come in any form, shape. It doesn't have to be a physical, violent attack. It could just be an unwanted contact. Now, all of this is an action that can be logged with the police, so it's always worth reporting to your local council and police if you feel it is necessary. But also consider mediation. Now, it may be difficult to have a informal conversation with your neighbour, but this may also be the case where if you've got a mediation service involved, this may well actually be something that is worth looking at and pursuing. May cost obviously it may cost you something, but if all the other options are not working, this could be an option that you can go down. But again, legal action, this can be the last resort because it is expensive and it's very intrusive and stressful. So I hope that does help. And if you do have any specific issues with your neighbours, by all means get in contact and we will do our best to help you specifically. There are various areas, especially on the government website, for support if you feel this is necessary. I hope that's helped. Thank you so much for listening.
Heal Your Home with Jason Ratcliffe, the home health expert.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. It really does mean a lot to me and my team. Check out the website at homehealthexpert.co.uk for more information, to check out the services that we can help with for you and your family and improve your home's health, and also for the top tip guides that we have available for you. You can submit listener questions through our website and also by emailing our team at info@homehealthexpert.co.uk or by searching for Home Health Expert on Instagram and Facebook. We will try our absolute best to get round to your questions and help your family out to improve your home's health. Don't forget to subscribe to Heal Your Home wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube if you're watching along. Thanks again for listening. It really does mean a lot. We could not do this without you, and in actual fact it would be completely pointless. So please send in your questions, and I look forward to you joining me in the next episode of Heal Your Home. Your health, your future, it all starts here.